talk about the kind of love that changes, that is transformative.
The kind of love that's transformative. I think it's the question that was asked yesterday in Sarah's class. I guess if you had the option of, if you were in need of a car, and let's say budget didn't matter, and you had the option of buying Chevrolet or a Toyota, there's a good chance, because of history, because of the information that's out there about these two cars, most likely you would choose Toyota. It can go about 300,000-400,000 miles without ever stranding you on the highway. At least that's what the narrative out there is. It may be that you have to fork out an extra $20,000-$30,000, but a Chevrolet may perhaps take you without any headaches for about 150,000-200,000. A Toyota will live twice as long. And so if budget is no problem, there's a good chance that you're going to choose Toyota. And I think people are very much the same way. I think if you cut human beings, it's something that you're much familiar than I am. If you cut them in 4 different pieces, that there is the physical part to a human being, there is the emotional part of the human being, there is the intellectual part of the human being, and then there is the spiritual part of the human being. Now, oftentimes what happens is if you're familiar with the various branches of Chinese philosophy, so there are 4 very important major components to all human life, and perhaps all of life. First, it's what we call earth, that's the human body. Then it's fire, which is human passions. Then it's air, which is the wind that you need for the fire to continue. And then there is the water, which is fluid. In other words, you can move through various desires. Okay? Now, usually wherever you house your body, if you go to 7-Eleven, you have a unique sort of advertisement. They have only maybe 50 items on the shelf. If you go to Costco, you have about 5,000 or 5 million items. So what you have is 7-Eleven creates, through your body, it creates certain desires, i.e. passions, i.e. fire. In Costco, you have a different set of. Okay. Now, usually wherever you take your body, you have no choice but to have certain desires come your way. That becomes your emotional life. Now, if the emotions happen to be somewhat attractive, if the desires happen to be attractive, what happens is intellectually, your mental body descends and then looks at you and says, okay, Emily, that thing out there looks good. How can you get it? Okay. There is no spirit right now. I suppose you could say the spirit is just you being profoundly passionate and have this intense need for whatever it is that you desire. Now, you're not yet at a place where you can detach and observe your emotions, especially those emotions that have come from your past, the past being nothing but a collection of your physical body being placed in different locations, having different desires, running into different people, forming different relationships, and then you have pain, you have joy, you have hurt, you have all these memories that most often kind of block and hinder the sort of persons that we want to become. Now, Before we can talk about love, let me just backtrack and talk about the story that you had asked a couple of nights ago. I think it's the first night I picked you up from the BART station. It's about the guy who had lost the key to his house and was looking for it outside. You're not going to look for anything if you don't feel as if you've lost something. That's the first thing. No one is going to look for anything if there is no desire. Okay? In other words, you're not going to look for in your pocket for a $10 bill if there is no urge inside you that at 10 o'clock you got to get on the BART and it's going to cost you $10. So there has to be a need. Without a need, there is no desire to look for a key. Okay? Now, sometimes someone from the outside needs to come in and create those needs inside you. Coercion, manipulation, exploitation. Okay? Assalamu alaikum, Kavian. Now, the other thing about the key is that key is usually for a door that is locked or closed, and without it you can't enter. Okay? So wherever it is that you want to go, okay, you can't get in because there are roadblocks. And you're desperately looking for a key, whether it's a past you're trying to overcome, whether it's a relationship that has a lot of wrinkles and you want to iron them out, doesn't really matter. Whether you have a class and you're getting an F in it, but you want to pass the class, okay? So when you knock on your instructor's door, what you're really asking is there a key out there? Okay? If there is a key out there, how can I look for it? Where can I go to find it? What does it look like? Okay. Now, when I lived in Davis in the 1980s, I was working at a motel in Davis. I forget what it's called, but I was a maid. So, and there were like 4 or 5 of us. Each of us were given about 30 or 40 rooms to kind of clean, do the sheets and all that. And all the maids were given a master key. A master key is very, very different. A master key is like a Socrates. A master key is like a Plato. A master key is like a Jesus Christ. It's like a Malcolm X. They have this overarching, they look down and they see everything. Not extremely clearly, but as clearly as possible. That most of us are quite fuzzy and foggy about those things. So these are the master key of human beings. They have access to something that they can just unlock any door that's out there for the most part. Okay. Now, there are keys to your physical life. In other words, it's not good for you to have a rich emotional life because that's going to be destroyed if you don't have money for rent. Okay. So you need a key there is a key for the physical life, there is a key for the emotional life, there is a key for the intellectual life, and there is also a key for the spiritual life. Okay. And for you to be on the quest for the spiritual key, I think, and that's my position, I may be wrong, okay, you really need to have founded the keys to your physical, emotional, intellectual lives. That you have opened the door, you've gone through, you've seen what's out there, and you say, you know what? I have the key to my physical life, and it's good. My emotional life, it's good. My intellectual life, I've read a few books, it's good. I can think thoughts a little. I can reflect a little. But then you realize there is this other need that you have, and you don't know what it is. Now, whenever you're looking for something and you can't find it, it always indicates some darkness. There are places you have overlooked. There are places you can't see, and you need help. Okay? Now, I can look at you without considering your past that has created a good amount of emotions, and I can just like you for your physical presence. And that like will eventually evolve into love. And by the time I figure out, I understand maybe the disaster that lives inside you called history, unresolved, or maybe not so disastrous. I am now, because of our interaction, because of the history that we have created, you hold me in bondage now. I am connected to you emotionally. And even if I want to leave, I can't because of the history. And now you tell me about your past, and I sit back and say, man, We just met 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago. Your history is about 40 years old. What can I really do? I don't want to leave you because that has its own set of issues, guilt and shame and all that, okay? At the same time, I feel absolutely incompetent. I don't know what keys to look for. And by the time I figure out, and every time you open an emotional door, it has its own key, it has its own set of issues, you know? And you just don't suffer from one emotional issue. There are like tons of them. And each has a door, and each door is locked, and each door requires a key. Okay? And that's the sort of love we usually talk about. You go somewhere, you look at someone instinctually, not intuitively, instinctually, because we are physical beings. And there are unseen, unknown forces about us that just kind of just pushes us towards something. Okay? Now, you may want to try to understand, and you can. I mean, Sigmund Freud tried desperately, and ultimately came to the conclusion there are parts to us that we just can't have access to. Okay? Now, remember, when I become attracted to you physically, not knowing your emotions and not knowing the sort of intellectual tools, if you have any, because if you had any, you would have resolved the emotional tools, emotional issues, but you don't. Okay? So I have to, or you and I have to sit and talk about this stuff for a long, long time until I realize, you know what? It's too dark. And it's going to take you some time to trust me enough to open all the doors. And that depends whether or not you have actually the keys. Okay? And if you're brave enough to say, Amir, I'm going to unlock the door, you're going to see what's inside, and it's messy. I hope you don't run away. Okay? So the first part of, I suppose, shade of love is you go somewhere, you see someone physically attracted, you don't really know what you're getting yourself into, and you say, okay, fine. That's one type of love. And the more history you have with that particular body, the more difficult it is to leave. Unless it has been extremely abusive, there is a breaking point where you just leave cold turkey. But cold turkey is a result of maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 months or years of you tossing and turning in your bed, and you ultimately come to the conclusion, I don't like my life, I'm leaving. And by the time you get to this place, you're no longer emotionally as connected, intellectually devoted. You don't really care for that life. Okay. Now, it may be that you and I meet at a coffee shop. We don't find me physically that attractive. Maybe I don't find you physically that attractive, but our eyes meet. You greet me nicely, and I greet you nicely back. And I look around, there are no spaces. I say, may I share this table with you? And you say, sure. And I see that you're holding a book, The Road Less Traveled by P.D. Scott Peacock. Okay? It's a great book. And I say, oh, that's an interesting book. You say, I'm sorry to trouble you. Why are you reading this book? And you've been around the block a few times. You kind of are okay with the emotions and all the mess that lives inside you. And you say, well, you know, when I was 5, my father. When I was 25, my boyfriend. When I was 155, my son. And I'm a man. Ask Sarah, and she'll tell you. She says, the door doesn't close well. I am right there in my garage grabbing all the DeWalt tools, and I walk into the living room with my truck. Okay, let me fix it. A man is a fixer. And now if you have this desperate need to fix, what I'm looking for is not physical attraction, emotional attraction. But I'm not looking for healthy people to be attracted to. I'm looking for people who are down and out, because if they can figure things out on their own, I would not be needed. And as you talk, I realize, oh my God, she is beautiful. She's such a mess. I love her. And we go home and I make you a cappuccino. And I draw a heart on it, and you're very impressed. You know, men are all about 2x4, not me. I'm a 2x4 as well as a heart. Okay. And then something happens. I see you physically. I also see you emotionally. You open up. You trust me. And you listen to me. And when you listen to me, man, I become the center of your world. My value as a human being goes up. And now not only do I love you for being broken, but I love the way you make me feel about myself. So my value goes up. And every time I come home and I see you happy, I say, what is wrong with you? Because happy means I am no longer needed. And that depends on how incompetent I am, how insufficient I am. Now, that's another form of love. Okay? The thing with this particular love is that depending on the issues, depending on how often we talk about those issues, depending on whether or not the keys I give you are the keys that you actually want and the keys you actually use, there comes a point where I say, this is just way too much. Every day we go home, it's dark. We both sit, we look for a key. I give her the key because I'm very intelligent and wise like Jesus Christ. I have access to people's emotions, you know. And there comes a point where I say, I'm really just tired. I just want to go home and just watch a movie. Like Rambo. I want to go out there. I mean, I can't destroy anyone myself. I'd rather see someone else do it. It's like you don't want to have a chicken coop in the backyard and then every 5 days go and grab a chicken and, cut the neck off. You'd rather just go to Safeway and cut a neckless chicken. Right? And so after a while, I realized this particular form of love, in as much as it has given both of us some value and stability, it's no longer working for me. I walk away. Or you walk away. Now, physical love will last about maybe a year and a half, 2 years, if you're lucky. Emotional love, it creates a bit more entanglement of sorts, and it takes anywhere from like 3 to 10 years for you to figure things out and eventually walk away. Some people longer, some people shorter. Then I run into you again at some forsaken coffee shop in Berkeley, and you are reading Noam Chomsky. This is not a man who is physically troubled. This is not a man who is emotionally troubled. Good morning, Alexis. And by troubled, I mean And by troubled, I mean, this is a man, for example, who sees the problem with language. This is a man who sees the problem with society. This is a man who sees the problem with modernity, technology. He doesn't have personal issues. He doesn't have mom or dad issues. He doesn't have boyfriend, girlfriend issues. He has a bigger issue, which is, I feel bad for the culture that human beings live in. I feel bad for the society that's been created by so-called civilized people. I feel bad for the eruption of technology in every aspect of human life. And I feel bad for the fact that people want to express their pains and their sorrows and their disappointment in some ways, but they can't. They fumble all over the place. They become incoherent. And so that adds to their frustration and eventually creates violence. So he comes on TV, he has some YouTubes out there, he writes some books, he gives lectures or sermons out there to just make us or help us see things a bit more clearly. So his issues are really the things that he sees about us. Okay? Now, if I have a father issue, a mother issue, a marriage issue, a relationship, romantic kind issues, these are personal stuff. Okay? And I just want to fix my own personal stuff. This is a guy who stands outside, looks in, doesn't like what he sees, and he takes it on his shoulders. The burden, the cross. Okay. And I ask you, so what are you reading? And you say, Noam Chomsky. Why? It's a beautiful book. And you're about to pack up and leave. I say, so where are you going? And you say, well, I'm going home. Well, where do you live? I live with my parents. How old are you? I'm 35. Well, don't you have your own place? I love my parents. Why would I want to go and live on my own? Human beings are social animals. I love my parents. Well, do you have a boyfriend? Yeah, I have a boyfriend as well. And I realized that physically, emotionally, your life is really, really good. And the book that you're reading is not about you resolving some of the issues that may have lived inside you. You have access to the bigger picture of life. Human beings suffer. Human life is complex. There are wars everywhere. Language is difficult. It's layered with meaning, perspectives. And people fight because they don't understand the perspectives. And every perspective has a history. And people don't spend time. They don't care enough to understand the history. And I look at it and say, wow, she explained things to me so well. And I begin to like you on an intellectual level. And this has more longevity because imagine now I say we get together, we hang out, and we go to various workshops, we go to various lectures, and we listen to all these wonderful people talk about human society, human culture, human life. And then I say, so Emily, you know what? I'm tired of being in Oakland. Do you want to go on a cruise? You say, yeah. Okay, let's go pack up. And I pack Plato, and you pack Rousseau, and I pack, I don't know, Chomsky, and you pack whatever book that interests you. And then you sit, in that corner and you read Chomsky, and I read in that corner and read, I don't know, some person. They both have to do with the social, cultural aspect of life. And every time you and I sit and we have this beautiful conversation about the war in Israel and Palestine, about homelessness, about poverty, that maybe once in a while you and I should go to Costco and buy some bread and some turkey and some vegetables and make sandwiches and go to Berkeley and pass them out to homeless people. And you realize that I've fallen in love with your intellect. And instead of you being guided by physical beauty, you being guided by emotional hurricanes that live inside you, you're very sober. You understand human society, you understand the complexities of human life, homelessness and all that. You say, Amir, instead of sitting, let's just go do something for people. When I begin to fall in love with your intellect and the way you see things and experience things and feel things. Assalamu alaikum. Khudafez Baba. And it's a good life if you can fall in love with someone's intellect and nothing else. You really have a rich life. The only problem is if you're a woman and you're attracted to a man's intellect and they happen to be only 30, a 30-year-old man is nothing but a bucket of bumper stickers that he really doesn't understand. For some strange reason, he just likes social issues and he reads books on social issues and thinks about social issues, but doesn't really have the proper understanding. It's not lived experience, And if you're somewhat seasoned, imagine, I'm from Iran and I'm an immigrant. Imagine some student in the back raises the hand and says, I understand what it means to be an immigrant. And I look at him and say, so have you ever been outside of the US? No. I used to live in Berkeley, but I migrated to Oakland. Oh, okay. So that's a migration, huh? From Berkeley to Oakland. And they know all the buzzwords. One of the things, I sometimes am in these hiring committees, deans, faculty members, all that stuff. And I remember some time ago, I was a member on this committee trying to hire a dean for the Humanities Social Science Division. And this woman comes in, man, she knew all the buzzwords, all of them. And she got the highest score, and she got hired. And she was awful. And what you realize is that if you happen to be around a 30-year-old man or even a 40-year-old man, 50, 60, 70, first men mature very, very slow. They're about 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years behind. So if you're 30 and your man is 30, he's not even born yet. But all, those side issues aside, an intellectual life can carry this love can keep it alive for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. If you can fall in love with the physical beauty of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, I'm not quite sure how you want to handle his drinking or how you want to handle her temper. That's too much. And I think it's nice for you to be attracted to someone who is emotionally broken, and you want to, as a compassionate, kind, empathetical human being, you would want to go out there and help them out. But your capacity only allows so much self-sacrifice, sacrificing your time, your energy, your life, to make another human being just feel a little bit better about themselves and their life. And after a while, you find yourself completely worn out. And that's about 5 years. You can fall in love, and then eventually you'll grow to hate. Intellectual life can carry you for a long, long, long time, and it's a good life to have. Then there is this other part we call the spiritual love. It sounds like a very exotic slogan, and I suppose it is, but it's really not fun. It's not fun for a couple of reasons. If you have graduated to the psychological stage where you're not going to the Gospels because you're sick, physically sick. Let's say you have cancer and you're dying and you have nowhere else to turn except the Bible. If your relationship, romantic kind, is not suffering any major or serious issues, if intellectually you have lived a relatively sober and reflective life, you come at a certain crossroad in your life around the age maybe 40, maybe 45. Some people younger, some people older. No one really knows why it happens or how it happens. You say, I love my house, I love my companion, and I love all the books that I have, and I love the information I have in my head. But it seems that I find myself looking for a key, and I'm looking for a door. And I go to my physical life. And I remember by the time you get to this different stage in life, your physical life can no longer provide you with answers. Your emotional life, no matter how wonderful your companion may be, they can no longer really satisfy your inner yearning for some invisible, unseen thing. And you comb through the books. You read Daughter of Fire, Awakened Dreams, Noam Chomsky, all these different books, but they're not offering you any keys. And as your physical, emotional, intellectual, and they're all healthy, all these lives or bodies are falling apart. You find yourself like Dante in the middle of the woods, and it's dark, and you're no longer 20, you're 40, at least 35, 36, and it's frightening. You look at your life and you say, I have built this house with my own hands, blood and sweat. It used to be a home, but now it's just a house. I have this companion, beautiful relationship, healthy set of emotions that both of us have. He or she no longer nourish me. It doesn't mean you want a divorce, you want to become, homeless, or you want to divorce your companion. And you have all these books on the shelves and you read through them and you say, they have outlived their usefulness. There was a time that I could read Rousseau's Emile and be inspired. I look at the book now and I want to puke. It doesn't do anything for me. It's one thing to read the book of Job when your life has fallen apart. And then you go to the book 5 years again, later again, but your life is not as bad. And you read the book and it no longer inspires you. There are certain components about you that are just no longer there. So the book becomes useless. Now remember, it has taken you a long time to create your physical life. Physical life is complicated. Going to school is complicated. Getting a job is complicated because they're all doors. All these doors are locked. You need keys for every single one of the components that exist in the physical life. Emotional life is difficult. I mean, we're not the sort of creatures who are willing to sit, observe, examine, feel, reflect, and overcome all the things that we see. Okay? And intellectual life, it's a serious place to be because you just don't want to feel. You want to understand. And you can't really understand by reading a book or two. And you can't understand by just thinking about things for a year or two. I mean, you talk about 20, 30 years of your physical, emotional, intellectual lives coming together harmoniously. And then you reach this psychological, spiritual evolution where you say, I have everything. They're all great. I have no problem with any of them. Yet, I have this longing for something. I don't know what it is. You cook, it doesn't work out too well. Because the questions, the yearning don't leave you. You know, you want to talk about your longing, your frustration with life, at least where you are, psychologically to your companion, but she looks at you, or he looks and says, what the hell are you talking about? And she becomes very frightened. Because all she hears is frustration, anxiety, confusion, dread, misery, and unhappiness. So, you know, we got 2 kids. What are you talking about? You know. And she tries to tell you what Noam Chomsky said. See, I've been there, I've done that, none of the stuff works. And now you realize what Dante said some, centuries ago is very applicable to where you are now. You're in the middle of the woods, and it's dark. And now in the presence of this God we call Pan, for panic, who lives in the jungle, in the forest. And that God only comes out when it's night. You know. And night doesn't mean that sun needs to set. It means that you look at your life, into your life, and you find no meaning. You find no purpose. You find no direction. Now, if you have a culture that has those kind of narratives, the first thing that you'll do is say, okay, my physical life is good, I've graduated. My emotional life is good, I've graduated. My intellectual life is good, I've graduated. I need to retire now. That's Hinduism. And you retire to what? You retire from physical life, emotional life, intellectual life. And by retiring, I don't mean complete disengagement. You know, khalvat dar anjuman, it's one of the most important tenets in the Sufi tradition. Khalvat means solitude. Anjuman means crowd. That you love every single person in this room. And if they invite you to their house for Thanksgiving, you will say yes to all of them. And when you're there, you will conversate with every single one of them. You will cook, you will clean, you will laugh. You will do all sorts of things. But on the inside, you know, it's only a mirage. It is temporary. You know you're going there alone. You have this art that allows you to pretend, to be social, and you need to be political. That's healthy. And you never forget that I am here because I was invited. I am here because I'm a social animal. I am here because I need people to survive. I also know there is this other part to me that is forever alone, can never have a companion. It's a solitary journey. Khalvat dar anjuman. Have a job, be married, be good to your kids, be good to your companion. Have a job, make lots and lots and lots of money, have a tremendous amount of physical, emotional, intellectual power in life. But you will always remember that there is this other part of you that will always remain poor. And your physical, emotional, psychological, or intellectual life will never provide any keys, any doors to your spiritual life. Okay? And that's the way the lion and the lamb will lay together. Without, you become so spiritual where you look at your companion and say, I hate you, I'm leaving this marriage. Or, I saw that Jesus was a homeless man who went to the desert. I want to sell everything and walk in the desert. You respect both the lion part of you and the lamb part of you. Okay. So, If you come, say, from the Indian tradition, or from the Chinese tradition, or from the Japanese tradition, or from the Middle Eastern tradition, the narrative is already there, which is there will come a point to your life, if you are lucky, at least in this life, that the three other areas of life, physical, emotional, intellectual, are healthy. You're both blessed and cursed to look for a different kind of meaning to the sort of human animal that you are. You're going to go to your, initially how it begins, you're going to go to your physical, emotional, intellectual life to look for keys. You're going to talk to your friends. It's not going to work. You're going to buy new sofas, new cars. That's not going to work. You're going to change your job. That's not going to work. You're going to find new friends with whom you can talk about this stuff. That's not going to work. This is a solitary journey, which means the tradition says, now that you are at the stage, go look for a guru. You're in darkness. A teacher is someone who's going to take away your darkness and slowly plant seeds. And out of those seeds, you will experience moments of light, clarity. No one else and nothing else can give you. Now, you have no choice but to become addicted to physical life. You have no choice but to become addicted to emotional life. You have no choice but to become addicted to the elements or all the components in your intellectual life. So attachment, addiction exists on all these three levels. You're going to now find a guru or a teacher out there. Now, what happens is it becomes a bit more complicated because you have a certain need, okay? You don't understand the need. You also come with your own unique temperament.